What would happen if Gibson went back to building guitars the way they used to? One guitar, one man. Hey, it's me, Baxter.
And me, Jonathan.
And me, Sean.
Before you get your panties in a bunch, I know that's not totally possible. Not trying to do clickbait or anything, but we have a dream. I have a vision. I have a plan. You ready, Johnny?
I'm ready.
You ready, Sean?
I'm ready.
Laid on.
So let's say, well, you call this. We call it a historic factory. There's Gibson historic stuff. The historic factory, where Gibson goes back to the way they built it before Henry had the ideas of some, we'll get in that in a minute too, of completely assembly lining it, everything at Gibson. Where it's a small batch, builds your guitar from start to finish. Your guitar is built, it's numbered by like, Team like Gorilla, Team Sasquatch or something. There's names,
Team Squatch.
Or Team Robert Hawes. I feel like Robert Hawes is the guy that works at Gibson. I don't know.
Yes, sure.
I'm on Team Redford.
But this, I mean, am I just smoking the peace pipe here? Could this be a thing? And you've worked at Gibson. Tell me how this used to be done.
No, it couldn't be a thing. I mean, because everything I'm going to share, I'm going to give you the disclaimer right now. Anecdotal. So, I'm sure there are. Unfortunately, being employed by Gibson does not make me a Gibson historian, but. Like the way it's laid out now, you got the people, I guess, carving out the bodies and the tops from woods and necks and stuff, putting it together, gets finished, and then I was like in final assembly, right?
Yes.
So like the guitars would come to us essentially finished, but empty, no electronics in them, no pickups, no tuners, no nothing.
Just like the body, the neck.
Just the body and the neck.
There.
Bam. And so I remember training, right? And I got my own little sort of workbench with everything I need to make that guitar ready to go be set up and played.
Awesome.
And that was really cool. Like I enjoyed that. Do you know what I mean?
Like from pride in that, like an ownership of the guitar, I'd imagine.
And the story I heard was that it used to be that way. That you just always did it. And the only reason they did it that way when I was there is so that you could like jump into any spot on the assembly line and do it, But apparently when Henry was at the helm, he went to, I guess it was Japan or somewhere, saw the factories, saw the way they had these little, like not conveyor belts, but these little assembly lines with like rollers where the guitar can just rolls down. So when it gets to you, like when it got to me, I had my little soldering stuff and bam, 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 bam. I'd do the pickups.
It's like Ford.
That's right. And you had 90 seconds.
Is the clock going when it gets to you?
Yeah, well... You're supposed to have you can see your little timer. And you're supposed to take about 90 seconds. And there were guitars that took a little bit longer, a little bit less. It was supposed to average out to 90 seconds. And the worst thing was the clock, not the clock, but the counter at the end that would say like 400, how many guitars you had to finish that day, and you were like, oh my god.
Does you individually or your team?
The line.
The line, okay.
The line. That's how many guitars. But so like that, I think it would be possible, and I think it would be cool. Because I think people would take a little more.
Well, then here's my thought too. Yeah. I think myself and a lot of people would be willing to pay a slight bit more for this. And I'm curious to see what you guys think out there. Like, not a ton more, because we're already pretty high for a Les Paul. But let's say, I'm just thinking Les Pauls because that's the guitar. Let's say we're at $3,000, or let's say it's $2,800.
Yeah.
Maybe 10% more. Could they do that for 10% more, or is it going to have to cost more?
Okay, here's I'm gonna.
You're Debbie Downer today.
These dreams.
No, actually, I think you're gonna be surprised by what I say. So we're kind of paying that for the custom shop with Fender, to have our. It used to be called Team Build, right? Now it's Custom Build. They're like this small group, but at Gibson, what we're talking about. Let's say that just final assembly, just where I worked, went back to the one dude taking the guitar, putting all the stuff in, and then it goes for the final setup, right? I don't think you'd have to pay anymore.
Interesting.
I don't even know that I think it's, I guess it is slightly more efficient, but man, and I'm sure it's changed, new CEO, twice over now, all different things. But there are days, man, where we just stand there because there's no guitars coming down the line.
That's crazy.
And some of that was mismanagement because it'd be like, oh, we're out of gold top paint, or blah, blah,
well,
whatever.
So much of the cost of these guitars built in is the mistakes they make. So when they have a disaster guitar comes through and like they foul it up, they got to trash it. And you already have the neck and the bodies put together. They try to buff it out, you said?
Well, you'd have the guys, and obviously the guys who would come down and, they're, hey, I hit this guitar with a tool by accident. You know what I mean? And a tiny little chip or a ding, right? And sometimes the guys from finishing can come and try to rebuff it out or whatever, it go back. And in that regard, Gibson's quality control is pretty wild. Like, it actually is sort of crazy.
Well, it's the opposite of what everybody says. You know, the QC is so bad at Gibson, but it's hyper, almost too hyper.
Well, I think maybe it's focused in the wrong.
Well, let me ask Sean.
Or it was, you know.
I'm curious, Sean. So you as a younger purchaser of these guitars, and you're a Gibson fanboy as well.
I am.
Would you mind a guitar if it had a slight blemish if it was built by a small team?
Me personally, absolutely not. I would love it. I would love
Interesting.
even that, because to me that's a part of like the story, the tale of this guitar and me now, you know. But also, if you knew that getting the guitar, wouldn't you feel you'd take a little more pride in owning it because you knew 1 to 10 people are working on this thing, and you've got something that is handmade, you know?
Yeah,
and handmade in a
I
way
like
that is like, there's something to that.
You've talked about that before, where like things that are handmade aren't perfect in the same way.
No, absolutely not, right? But, and that's the thing too, is back whenever Gibson was making guitars in the 50s and 60s, that's what it was, you know? And you think those guys got guitars that they'd open it up and it's like, oh my God, there's a ding on it, I gotta send it back. No, they were like, does it play? How's it sound? Let me plug it in. Let me see what's going on, you know? And they play it and they're like, insane.
I think something we were sort of speaking about earlier before we started shooting was just the goal is to get not just a mass-produced thing, but a musically sound instrument.
And musically sound right.
You know, and like, you know, obviously you want it to be as perfect as possible, but perfection comes not just with a slight blem. I don't mind that. Perfection comes in when I strike that chord, is that guitar a guitar that I want to play?
Yeah, it's like coming alive, you know?
Well, I think that comes down to like, hey, you're using great parts, or using really good pots, and is the wiring great, and is, you know, it's that stuff that I want to be sort of perfect and the quality control to be great on, not, you know.
Yeah.
Is the next set.
There a micro scratch on the, well, yeah, I mean.
Yeah. I think we had this weird shift over the last 60 years where we went from a quality made product to a quantity and a quality that everybody will just be okay with. Like, everybody can be like, well, okay. You know, as long as the finish is perfect on it, or, you know, all those things, but none of the stuff that actually makes it the great thing that it is. That's my take, my hot take, if you will.
Well, I mean, we've talked about it, Baxter and I talked about it before, like, you know, in 1959, if you went to Les Paul, it was expensive, but there was a Les Paul, right?
Yes.
There wasn't like, I'm going to get the custom historic VOS mastercrafted blah, blah, blah thing, you know, made by the guy that's actually, you know, in some of the, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not that. It was like, oh, you bought a Les Paul, and that was this professional tool.
Yeah.
Right? It'd be cool if we were back to that, because we were talking about this too. And Sean, I don't know if this is the same for you because you're sort of a different generation, but like, I know growing up, if I saw a Les Paul somewhere, I'm not talking about a studio, not a wine red studio. But I'm talking about like an actual.
It's like right when you say that,
that's
it
what
just goes in your
you
brain.
have this image, right?
What do you mean?
Because I would like go to like open for bands or see bands play, and they'd be like, "Man, we got a real, you know, we got Gibsons," and
That
they'd open it.
reminded
And
me
that's
of
what
Bill
it'd be.
Burr's whole bit. It's like, you know, just close your eyes, visualize, you know, a frat boy, a sports fan, you know, construction worker, a lesbian. You know, and like when you say Les Paul studio, it's the wine red Les Paul studio.
Wine red, that's what you-
slightly chewed up, a little bit dirty, and a little bit funky.
That always,
Fredboard's
always
a little closer to white than it is any brown
Yeah, it's
color.
funky, man. It's
untrimmed
funky.
strings coiled up on the end.
And I'll go a step further too. Like, even like, I'm gonna reference Jeremy Guitar Hunter, his YouTube channel, great channel if you haven't checked it out. He did a video years ago when he was like, I think I'm leaving Reverb or something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like
Quality
how
of
we
customer.
It was the quality, because it's not, and he had some issues there. And like, I'm not saying I totally agree with it, but I do agree with a lot of it. We become so fixated on little parts of the guitar that we forget what the guitar's job is. The guitar's job is to make music, and make beautiful music and inspire you. And some of the best guitars, it might have a slight little blem on it. Like, we shipped a great guitar to somebody the other day, a wonderful master build too. He noticed a slight little blem, like on the heel cap, just like on one of the corners, but it was just like a non-finished part. Like, nothing happened to shipping, nothing. But it left the factory that way. But he was like, man, this guitar is so good.
Yeah.
I just want to point it out so you guys can point it out to them. I'm like, man, that's awesome. I appreciate that, because the guitar was spectacular. I remember
Absolutely.
that particular guitar was a master build, NOS. 3-tone sunburst. It was your guy that I ended up working with.
Yep.
I'm not going to say his name in case he wants to keep anonymity. But we all sort of jaw dropped when we saw that guitar come in, because it was
It's great.
nothing like an NOS master build Sunburst, done. I think it was Fessler too.
Yeah.
And he just crushed it. It was unreal.
And I'm not trying to like justify like, oh, you want your guitar should be messed up or leave the factory
Nope,
in a certain
not at
way.
all.
But isn't there something kind of cool? Like that's your guitar, and you're like, oh, you know, in this one left the factory, there was this little thing, and it's I don't know. There's something kind of neat to that.
It's kind of like we've gotten so conscious of like relic stuff of, you know, how the guitar is received when we pick it up, what the look is, all these little things, to where at the same point we forget at the end of the day, just play the damn thing. Like, how does it play? Is it a great instrument? And that guitar specifically is phenomenal. Like,
and jumping back, like to that point exactly is like that was the whole idea of this video, is because we are Gibson fanboys. We're Fender fanboys. Like, everybody knows that who knows us. Like, it stinks. I wish I didn't have it.
I think we're shills according to the Reddit threads.
No, but we don't sell Gibsons.
we don't
So
sell
that's what's really
Gibsons,
funny.
but we all own Gibsons, and we all love to
I own
play
multiple
them.
ones.
bunch
I
of
own
wealthy
fucking-
shills.
Yes. God, that's cool. I want to be a wealthy shill.
I know. I wish that was right. I just,
Find that word offensive, but for other reasons, I think. But no, it's it just the idea of like we're always thinking of ways like our favorite manufacturer can do better, like always. And like we like to think these ideas. And we know that they don't really watch this. They don't care. They live in those horses. Those are the real corporate shills. They ride white ponies all day. That's what Mark Agnesi collects, just white Arabian ponies. And he rides them.
it into work.
And Cesar.
That would be amazing.
He goes into the elevator on it.
Cesar
goes all the way
had a
up.
Bugatti drone built for him that he flies to work every day. It's cool. It's a Bugatti drone, so it's
I
silent.
want to imagine them like high-fiving on their ponies, you know, when they
No,
met.
it's not the reality. They're guitar nuts just like we are.
That would be kind of dope. I'm gonna be honest. If
That
they
would
had
be dope.
if we had ponies and we were high fiving
One day.
on the way into work, that would be pretty dope.
Ah, but we hope that we throw these little wishes and tears out there, like maybe Gibson's thinking about, maybe Fender, because Martin did. They listened to us and like listened to a bunch of us when we asked them to change things back in 2016.
Yeah.
And they did it, and that's why we have great Martins again.
Oh, they're amazing. If you play
Great.
one from before 2016 specifically,
you notice it.
Yes, it's like I mean everything. Absolutely.
I mean, just from all the fit and
everything.
finish to the way they did the bracing, the way they did the
sound.
packaging.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for like taking those notes from all those great people that were out there in the field. But we you know, there's just a little fantasy we're thinking about, you know. Just, it'd be cool, and I'd be willing to pay a little bit more too.
Absolutely.
You know? I think so.
I say no to the paying more, but everything
wants
else, I'm fine with.
We're giving you a green card to charge us more. We're making a small batch, and we can see proof of that, and they're awesomer.
Yeah.
More
Seriously.
awesomer.
Make me a Les Paul standard, a real Les Paul standard. Play authentic.
I think they're doing pretty good on that part too. I think they're getting there. I think they're, you know, I think that's.
All right, I'm gonna go home. Click like, subscribe.
Hit the bell.
Follow us on X.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Peace be with you all, and to all a good day,
Time.
night.
Good time.
Rock and roll will never die.